We're live now. Welcome to the TD Report. I'm your host, David Combs. Just waiting on the text to get up so we can all
What's
get
up?
on here. And there we are. We're live. How's everybody doing today?
Great.
Great. Welcoming back Jody Coleman. Welcoming back Tony Kennedy. You guys are just on a trip for us, hanging
Yeah.
out with our guy. He's out at the Bengals game. So, why don't you go before we get started? Let me do this, guys. I didn't talk about it in production. I totally forgot to mention it. Today, November 13th, 2023. This is the 1 year anniversary of the shooting at UVA that claimed the lives of University of Virginia football players Devin Chandler, Lavelle Davis Jr., and Deshaun Perry. For a lot of non UVA fans, it's been a year, but for us UVA fans, it's just kind of felt like it just happened yesterday. So we want to make sure that we acknowledge the passing of these three fine young men. Again, our condolences to their families, their loved ones, and honestly, everybody that was on that bus that came back from that trip to DC. It was a school trip for a class, college class, and the shooting rang out as soon as the bus was disembarking in Charlottesville. Just a very sad reminder of the fragility of life and just in general, just the pervasiveness of gun violence in our culture, in our society. It has struck the University of Virginia. Tony is a Virginia Tech graduate. Gun violence has struck Virginia Tech as well, and many other college campuses in the
And
country.
and Jody's hometown 3, 4 years ago in Dayton
And
when they
Dayton,
had the mass shooting that they
that's
had
right.
in Dayton. Yeah, I was when I was in Dayton, I had asked someone where it was, and they kind of pointed me to the general area where it happened. So yeah, it made me just think. It's crazy that you're right there next to all this stuff, and it happens, and it shows you can happen anywhere.
It does. It does, and it's very sad, and just the loss of life. Young people cut down in what amounts to the very beginning of their lives. So we here at the TD Report want to express our condolences, and we reach out to the University of Virginia community. That said, we've got a show to do, guys. So let's talk about what you guys did this weekend. You guys are out basically a bit on a field trip. Hey, Jody, don't worry, we're gonna get to your Browns. We're gonna get to your Browns in just a second. Uh, Tony,
Yeah.
you got a chance to hang out with Mr. Burrow, Joe's dad. You got to see what was going on there. What did you think about that game? A great game, by the way. What did you think about that?
Well, what I thought about the game is we got to see high level quarterback play. Um, these two guys are where they supposed to be, where they were drafted, one and two. They are franchise quarterbacks. I mean, you can build around them. Of course, Joe Burrow's situation is a little bit better right now. But as you can see, uh, CJ Stroud, um, his he's special. I so for the record, I was high on CJ Stroud. Then last season, I went down on CJ Stroud. But then when I saw him play Georgia in that game, that's when I got high on him because I got to see everything that a quarterback need to do right then against pros, which I consider Georgia defensive pros. Wasn't for a bad call or no call, they probably would have won the game. But that game to me, Ohio State fans can probably talk about the whole career. Okay, I didn't need to see a whole career. I watched that game. That game right there showed me everything that he actually did on the field against Cincinnati right in front of me. He did it in that game, and then he did it against real pros in a game that we actually watched. So, I mean, he got a good chance to win the MVP, man.
Let's throw this to Jody. Early in the season, Joe Burrow had the calf injury. He had the calf injury in preseason. We weren't really sure. Is he 100% healthy now? How did he look out there to you?
Hey, he's 100% healthy, and he showed where he's going to be able to really lead that team. Don't take this loss for the Bengals as a loss that they can't come back from, because that Houston Texan team is for real. In their first year with DeMeco Ryans, they are for real. Joe Burrow, you got to think he didn't have a full arsenal of weapons. T. Higgins did not play in that game. We know he's on any other 28 other teams, maybe 25 other teams in the league, he's the number one.
No question.
He wasn't on the field. So they were able to bracket injured Jamar Chase. That's the question we should be asking. Jamar Chase was kind of limping around a little bit. They were taking him out the game. You see him with the big touchdown, but he still don't look the explosive Jamar Chase. I think they were trying to use him as a decoy early, Tony was mentioning, and they used him as a decoy early to get some other guys involved. But the offense goes as Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase goes. But Burrows is healthy. He made some throws that only maybe 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the league can make in that game, and he looked like folds and ropes. Don't count the Bengals out because Joe Burrow, he's one of the best quarterbacks when it comes to adversity by losing games, coming off of injury.
We'll just lost Jody for just a second. We'll get him back for you guys. Tony,
there you go, Jody.
Go ahead and make your last point. Sorry about that. We lost you for a second.
Yeah, Joe Burrow is one of those guys that he's very resilient. With him being as resilient, he can lose a game. He can have his back against the wall, and that's when he's going to play his best football. So, hey, if anybody out there that's counting the Bengals out, they don't really watch football because Joe Burrow is going to play his best football down the stretch.
This division is very tight, and pretty much everyone in that division is still alive. You see what I mean? There's really when you look at that division, what are the Steelers now? 6-3, or something like that. Is that right? Ravens are 7-3.
The Browns are 6-3, 7-3.
Yeah, that's a really tightly, wrapped up division. And when I say that, I mean tightly packed. It's not wrapped up by any, stretch of the imagination. Now we've got a big game coming up next. We've got the Ravens having to play against the Browns, coming up this week. Let me look at that schedule again real quick. Is that the Thursday game?
Yep. No, Ravens play.
That's Thursday.
Ravens play the Bengals.
Ravens play the Bengals. I'm sorry.
Browns play the Steelers
on Thursday. Yeah. Browns play the Steelers. Again, this
Sunday,
division now has gotten so heated up that these games absolutely mean something, and we're barely out of November.
Yeah.
Tony, what do you think about this game coming up for Baltimore? Baltimore takes that loss to the Browns as Jody smiles. Just the heavens open up when Jody smiles on that one.
I thought, and I said 3-4 weeks ago, and you said you're going to mark it. I said Baltimore was the best team in the NFL. And at the time, they were. And I somewhat still feel that, but not anymore because I think that's why they were going after someone like Chase, because they need a player on that D line that you have to kind of focus on to allow everyone else to go. In defense, if you notice, the better defenses have one player that you have to focus on, and then everyone else gets better around them. And that player's still good, but it seemed like everyone else picks their game up when they got that one player. And it may not seem like nothing right now in the regular season, but in the playoffs, when you start really game planning, the more one-on-one matchups that you can get and that your elite player allows your other players to have, opposite the guy that's opposite 56, opposite of TJ Watt. That's why he's having such a great year. Highsmith. Yes, because you have to concentrate on Watt.
You better.
So everybody else. So go ahead.
Hold on, I gotta go against you on this real quick because the Baltimore Ravens have a guy named Roquan Smith who was the top 3 at his position, and he's one of those guys that is having one of the better seasons. Even last year, he was up for the MVP for majority of that season. And also, Highsmith, I understand he benefits from T.J. Watt, but T.J. Watt was all out most of last year. He still had 14.5 sacks, so the guy can generate pressure on his own. Is Roquan considered the Mike Backer in that offense? Yes. Next to Queen is the
So for the Mike Backer, which defenses are designed for the Mike Backer to make tackles to be free. Okay. So that's no problem. That's a regular game plan. Okay. Mike Backer, for you to try to change all your offense just to make sure the Mike Backer is being blocked, it is going to be kind of foolish because they designed everything for that person to be free. Okay. Now, what I'm saying is the TJ Watts of the world, the Parsons of the world, the Miles Garrett's of the world,
Myles Garrett,
those
yeah.
guys who can flip flop different sides. You can flip flop different sides, then you can just bring them to fake pressure in the middle. Those guys who can play those multiple positions. The Mike Backer, when that quarterback comes up, he's yelling who the mic is, who the mic is. Everything is already
So
designed for them.
are you saying they don't have an edge rusher? Because when we spoke off air, we were talking about Ray Lewis. You had to account for Ray Lewis, and last time I checked, Ray Lewis was a Mike Backer. So are you talking about a dominant edge rusher?
Well, hold
Yeah,
on.
they don't
You
have a
had to
dominant,
re-
but
you
you
had
had
to account for Ray Lewis and Ed Reed.
but you also
Not
had
on
to
that
account
the first
for.
Super Bowl. He wasn't on that first Super Bowl.
But the first Super Bowl,
Right,
he
right.
wasn't. Their whole defense just was so good. But then the next one, you had people like Suggs. Suggs, who's going to be a Hall of Famer, is a Hall of Famer for a reason. So you had to account for him. A Mike Backer, a Mike Backer's a Mike Backer. He's a great backer. But when you come to that line, 99% of the time, Peyton Manning and them dudes knew who was at the Mike Backer. They knew that the Mike Backer is here. He's either here, or here, depending on how the front is. When you come to that line right now, the way they do in the game, TJ Watt could be here, he could be here, he could be there. So it changes how you have to go at it. Now, what happens is, I'm just breaking it down. What happens is, if all week you are game planning on where he is, and the defensive guy knows that, he knows that, oh, when I put him here, you most of the time going to run away. So guess what?
Right.
I put my weakest people here on his side. Then I put my strongest people here where you got to run away because that's what you're going to normally do is try to run away from him. So now you can play more games. You can play more games, and that's why I say with the Ravens, they were trying to go after Chase. Now I know why. Because in big games like that against Cleveland played that right. They like, okay, they're very strong at linebacker, but their defensive line ain't that great. So your defensive line ain't that great, and you're great at linebacker. Okay, we can adjust to that. But you remember, every team that is really good right now have either great DN, great edge. Name the teams. If you name the teams, they got a good DN or good edge. Go ahead.
Kansas City, their best player is a D tackle and Chris Jones.
Their best player is a D tackle, and that's one. Okay.
The Jets' best defensive player is Williams, and he's the D
San Francisco, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Dallas, Philly. That dude led the league in.
No,
so
their best player on defense is Jalen Carter right now.
Well, but they went to the Super Bowl off of that one dude leading the league in sacks.
Yeah,
up the
I'm talking
sack.
about right now. Jalen Carter.
Right.
Jalen Carter is the best D tackle. He's the best defensive player as a rookie on their team. If you go to the Rams. The Rams is Aaron Donald. He's up.
Well, the Rams always going to be Aaron Donald, but
I'm just throwing some scenarios out there.
And Detroit. So I listed all the teams. Detroit's best dude is an edge. Pittsburgh's best dude is an edge. Y'all best dude is an edge. Dallas' best dude is an edge.
Right.
San Francisco's best dude is an edge. Even the sorry-ass Chargers' best dude is an edge. I mean, we can keep, if you want to go, you do have the Chris Jones of the world. You do have the Carters of the world. You do have my man at the Rams of the world. But most of the time right now, those guys are the ones that reason why they're getting the money. Because they're getting the money because it's so much harder to defend and they are so multiple. And the good thing is, even look at this. We went to the game. The best player that they had was the edge who didn't play. And did he make a difference in that game?
No.
Yes, he did.
No, the Bengals, the Bengals, best defensive player is DJ Reader.
You think so? You think he's better than Hubbard?
Team. Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, he's better than Hubbard. Hubbard is good.
Hubbard and them dudes put pressure on people now.
I get it, but they're not getting that pressure. DJ Reader is the real deal, and he's very underrated at the defensive tackle position. That's one of those guys that move the pile. He doesn't get a lot of sacks, but he makes it where those guys can get one-on-one coverage.
So the game we watched the other day, when they didn't have all their people, your boy had plenty of time to get down that damn field. See, and the thing is, when those dudes
are gonna do that against anybody, man.
So the thing is, when those dudes are out of the game, now we can double inside. If I'm wrong, look at the Washington Redskins. 1 sack in 2 games. One. They got rid of both edges. They had 1 sack in 2 games. 1.
That was okay. That was not. Hey, Dave. That was not smart of the Commanders, especially with the Commanders being in the playoff hunt, especially with them being in the NFC where anybody can win it. I don't like both of the guys getting traded. I mean, it's like they packed it up and said, you know what, they got both of them traded. So I'm looking like they packed up those guys, Dave, and said, you know what, we don't want to play football no more.
Hey, Jody. So can y'all
got his money? Montez Sweat made sure he got his money though.
No, but listen, so that we understand, we do agree that one should have been traded. Yes. You get compensation because you had. So let's say at the end of the year, you don't come up with a contract for Montez Sweat. Okay. If he leaves and jumps to Chicago, let's say if it would have done, they still would have got a compensation pick for him, right? Yeah, because he was a restricted. He was a restricted free agent. So you went from a 2nd round to a 3rd round, but then you had a chance to actually win. You have a chance to actually win, and you didn't get a whole bunch for him.
Dave and Tony, I don't like the move with the Commanders because you got your quarterback Sam Howell has the most yards passing in the NFL. He's starting to get the ball to those weapons, the McClures of the world. They're running the ball with Brian Robertson. They're able to move the ball on pretty much anybody in the league. Now, what Tony just stated is they have 1 sack in 2 games. That's why they have dropped. Did they drop multiple games in a row or just 1 game in a row?
They just dropped 1 in a row. They beat New England.
I know
they beat New England.
They beat New England.
So they took because they lost to Seattle. So my thing is when you have the Commanders who let's give Eric Bieniemy his flowers. He made Sam Howell. He's the #1 passer in the NFL right now. Go look at the numbers. He's #1 in the NFL. That's accustomed to what Eric Bieniemy has done. He has made quarterbacks. Okay, Patrick Mahomes probably would have did it with anybody, but Patrick Mahomes is struggling a little bit because guess who got more yards than Patrick Mahomes right now?
Sam Howell.
So let's go ahead and give Eric Bieniemy some flowers. So I'm like, if I'm the Commanders, I'm keeping both of those guys, and I'm taking my chance at the end of the season on trying to make a particular run because you can make that run because you got a 2nd-year quarterback. Tony and Dave, y'all say it all the time on the show. Make your run while these guys are young. I take my chances keeping those guys. And I'm definitely not letting Chase go to the 49ers, a team that I may play in the playoffs.
Listen, the way I've always looked at it with Washington, if great players were raining down from the sky, Washington wouldn't know what to do with them if they got them all. They just wouldn't. It's roster construction. Okay?
That's fucked up. That's messed up.
I'll tell you this, Tony. If it was raining soup, if it was raining chicken noodle soup, Washington would be outside with a fork. They don't know what the hell they're doing. If you don't put your team together right and construct your units properly, you are going to run into the same freaking problem every year. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing every time and expecting different results. That's exactly what the Washington organization does. And since I'm going to throw some stones, I'm going to throw some stones at the Chicago Bears organization. They're just as bad as Washington. They've made so many mistakes draft-wise. And I will say this. I was talking to a Chicago fan the other day that said, we shouldn't have drafted Justin Fields. I said, are you out of your mind? You absolutely should have drafted Justin Fields. What you should have done was you should have drafted Jalen Carter when you had the opportunity to draft that guy. It would have definitely helped your defense. You look at what Chicago lost on that defensive line when Eddie Goldman decided he was going to leave. He took the free agent deal and went to, the Falcons, and then he retired. Eddie Goldman did his job when he was in Chicago. That's what they
Mhm.
need is a guy that's going to eat up blocks and get tackles and keep the middle of that line, that A gap, just keep it tight. You can't get him up out of there. You never could get Eddie Goldman out of there, even as he got older. But Eddie made his money. He decided he was going to walk away. Eddie Goldman would still be effective in Chicago had he stayed. Chicago had at one point, they had Robert Quinn there. All Robert Quinn does is get sacks. That's all he does. Am I wrong?
You're not.
Dave, you are
Everywhere that
absolutely
Joker goes,
correct
he
about
gets
the Giants.
sacks.
Let's talk about what for a moment what the Bears have given up in just 3 seasons. They had Roquan Smith at middle linebacker. He was up for the MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, when they let him go to the Ravens. They had Khalil Mack. He is one of the lead leaders in sacks.
Gave up a bunch to get him, too.
Goldman. They gave up everything to get it, and you got Goldman in the middle. You had a chance to go get Jalen Carter in the draft, and you don't go get him. You have multiple pieces around you. You trade to go get Chase Claypool. He was a dud. If you see a guy with that type of talent and they willing to give him away for a bag of chips, it must be a warning sign on him. It's a warning sign on him. So it ain't Justin Fields' fault. Y'all put nothing on the offensive line. Justin Fields, the 2 games before he got hurt in that game that the quarterback came in, he had 9 touchdown passes in 2 games.
And like 800 yards. He looked like he was starting to get it together, and then he gets hurt. Now listen, DJ Moore coming over, got his money, came over to the Bears. He's been fine. He needs to get targeted more. I get it. But the Bears are right now staring at, what do they got? Do they have the number 1 pick right now? I think they have the
Number
number
two.
1 of the
number 2.
They have the number 2
They got
pick.
the number 2 and 3 pick.
They have the number 2 and 3 picks.
Who's number
There's a couple-
1? Is not the Cardinals, is it?
No. They got the number 1 pick because Carolina is the only team.
Carolina,
Carolina's
yeah.
there. Yeah, they've got the number
They
1
got the
pick.
1 and 2. 1 and
They got
3.
the
Who's
1 and
2?
1 and I think it's down to 5 now.
I think it's Arizona.
Arizona.
Chicago. Arizona or New York. I think the Giants are number 2.
Okay.
The Bears
I think-
do not need a
I
quarterback.
think
They do not
No.
need a quarterback.
no, they don't.
They might be tempted to take.
The Bears
they might
need
be tempted
Marvin.
to try to get one, but
They
do
need
not
Marvin
need a
Harrison
quarterback.
Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. and the best old tackle available.
You do that, and I think you're good. I think
You're gonna be really good.
You should be good on offense finally. And by
You
the
should
way,
be really good.
Chicago as a franchise, it's one of the original franchises in the NFL, have never had a 4,000-yard season passer. Never, not once.
And it ain't happening. Can I say something?
It won't
just
happen
before
this
we
year.
move on?
No, it won't happen
It
this
won't.
year.
It won't happen this. But they were on pace to do so. I think they were on pace to get a 4,000-yard passer.
They
But
were.
I'll say this about Justin Fields. Y'all do know last year they had the top 100 players. He was 85th, ahead of Trevor Lawrence. So this is according to what the NFL players said about Justin Fields. They said this guy was the 85th ranked player in the league. Now you're willing to trade him. I'm looking at his numbers now. He was about 62% completion. That's a little below the league average.
That's low.
He had 11 touchdowns to six interceptions, but that's just with his arm. If you go to what he did with his legs, is what which makes Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, make those guys unique, is because what they can do with their legs. And we forget that this dude just had 1,000 yards rushing last year. We had 1,142 yards last year, 43 yards, and he had 237 yards this year before getting injured.
Hey, Jody.
If I were the Falcons, I would have been already traded for this guy.
Jody, you know who I would go after and go get? If I'm the Giants with Daboll, I go get this kid.
Wow.
I go get this kid because reason I say is because they made a point about Josh Allen. His game, similar. That coach with a healthy Barkley and an added weapon, Justin Fields in New York, with Daboll as a coach, will be a problem.
I got to go against that, Tony, because I'm tired of guys like Justin Fields that's mobile going from one bad situation to another bad situation. Because you may say they can get another weapon over there in New York, but that offensive line is god-awful. That Chicago offensive line is god-awful. Why can't he go to a more quality ball club and let it
because
go
the
like
more
these
quality
other
ball
quarterbacks
club
had
ain't Trey.
opportunities.
Well, first of
I
all,
mean,
I
it
I
is
want him to
some
go.
guys that can.
If you look at, first of all, he's not going to go to Minnesota because it's in the division. You want him to go to a quarterback coach who is good with quarterbacks, and especially Daboll, because the 3 years that Josh Allen was rolling, it was the Daboll years, and I know that if he goes through with Daboll, he will put up what Josh Allen's numbers were for 21, 22, 20, 21, 22.
He had Stephon Diggs. So Dave, he had Stephon Diggs. It's nobody on the New York Giants roster that's close to Stephon Diggs.
Not even.
But he will be doing better than what he's doing there with Chicago.
Listen, I will be doing better at Chicago if I was there. So Justin Fields, I'm looking at a guy like Justin Fields to maybe be moved to like the New Orleans Saints because I don't think Derek Carr is a long-term solution there. And they got a good offensive line and they got a plethora of weapons. You know what that defense can do. Derek Carr is consistently getting hurt, and I just don't think that was a good fit for him.
If you can move Derek Carr, you get Fields in there, you're going to have to eventually pay Fields scale money for a quarterback. You're going to have to give him something because his rookie deal will be up. I think next year is the year that his deal is up, right? If you're the Bears, you don't have.
He
got 2 more years.
Even better. So you don't have to do anything for him now unless you really feel you have.
The only thing you got to do is say if you're going to pick up the option or not. So I mean,
he has to stay healthy. Yes.
I mean, but some of these teams, if Chicago's going to move, now I mean that's a big if. If Chicago's going to move him, I mean that. I'm Chicago. I don't move him. I get to make sure that the quarterback coach is right, the OC is right, because he had to come out and say, "Hey, man, it's the damn coaches." And right after that, they let him play his game. And that's when he beat Washington. He beat whatever. Then he got hurt. But
he lost to Denver. Remember, he had an excellent
game, lost to Denver. They blew that, but he played good.
But
he played good.
They beat Washington, then they lost to Denver.
Yeah,
because after he made that comment,
Denver. He had one of his best games of his career against Denver. They should have beaten those guys. They went up big and blew the lead. Listen, guys, if you talk about the Chicago Bears this year, you remember at the beginning of the season, you guys can go back and look up the tape. I called Chicago to win the division this year. Okay. I did before the season.
You did. You did.
Before the season.
You're a homer. You're Chicago.
For next year, I'm just going to go ahead and call it. They won't win the division next year because they're in there with the Lions. I get it. But next year, they're making the playoffs. Mark my words. They're making the playoffs next year.
Hey, Cody can put on the bottom of this thing. He can put on the bottom of this thing. Restore the roar.
Restore the roar. Let's talk about the Lions real quick. I got a chance to really watch them. Okay. They're a good football team, man.
Really good football team.
They're a good football team. Now, we did our show. We did the opener when they beat Kansas City. And you could say, hey, they were emotionally up for that game. They're playing against the Super Bowl champs, the defending Super Bowl champs, prime time. I'm going to tell you something. I got a chance to watch them the last 2-3 weeks. Last 2-3 games they played, that's a damn good football team, buddy. And they're about to mess around. They're about to mess around and have home field throughout the playoffs in the NFC.
And guess what? I got a chance to see them get destroyed by the Ravens. And I got a chance to look at their faces when they're getting destroyed. See, because you don't find out about people when we all got millions of dollars. You find out.
You just lost Tony right there. He was about to say something good.
When we all got millions of dollars, you won't find out about none of us when we got money. You'll find out about us when you got to cash out me some money to take care of something. I got to do something to take care of something. That's when you find out about people. And I don't find nothing out when you win it. I find out stuff when you lose it. The words that came out after they got beat by the Ravens. The body language after they got beat by the Ravens. The coach. The leadership, they put that all behind them and said, hey, man, that's what happens. This is week to week. We got beat this week. They made no excuses. That team, me and Jody argue all the time. And I am telling you, the betting people will say Philly. The betting people will say San Francisco. The delusional people will say Dallas. But I am telling you right now, they are the most dangerous team in the NFC. And you will see it because they're going to get a backdoor number one seed. And when they get a backdoor number one seed, and you got to go up into that place up there, whether they're going to cheat or do whatever, the NFL is going to make sure they get the Motor City out of Vegas. That's my team.
Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on, wait a minute. First and foremost, I think Detroit will make the playoffs, but that's as far as they're going to go.
Playoffs. That's already done.
Playoffs. It ain't already done. I'm gonna tell you why it ain't already done, because they are still the Lions, and they have potential of turning back into a pumpkin at any time. What I don't like about Detroit at this point in time is they don't have anybody opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. If they don't get anybody on the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson, they had Houston last year. I think he's been injured majority of the year. They get no pressure, and when they lost the games that they lost to Seattle, the game they lost to the Ravens, they got no pressure on those quarterbacks. They got absolutely no pressure. So I'm going to go back to this, and I think Dave alluded to it earlier. They're going to regret not drafting Jalen Carter, and it's going to come back to hunt them when they play teams that can really play. When they play against the Philadelphia Eagles, they got a good offensive line. It's going to come back to bottom. First of all, they got to go against Jalen. Another reason they're going to have a problem. They're going to have another problem when they have to go against Seattle, who I thought should have got Jalen Carter as well. But anyway, I digress. Jalen Carter would have put so many Band-Aids on that defense.
Yeah.
We lost Jody there for a second.
We lose Jody.
So I see where he was going. Basically, what he's saying is what I said basically about about the Bears in terms of getting Jalen Carter. When we were doing the draft show, we both thought that the Bears would do this. We thought that Seattle would, and just ended up falling. He fell in Philadelphia's lap. And Philadelphia did what good teams do. When other teams make mistakes, they say thank you. They're just going to plug them in. Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis are going to sit there on that defensive line in Philadelphia for the next 10 years. They're going to be so nasty in there. So when I look at the way the division shapes up and how the divisions stack up and everything, I look at a Dallas, I look at a Philly, and those two teams are basically built to be pretty good every year, okay? Washington's still trying to figure things out. The Giants, this season has just been an absolute disaster for the Giants. I mean, an absolute disaster. Everything that could go wrong this year did, for the Giants, and they're just halfway through the season.
Yeah.
Brian Daboll looks like he's very frustrated. He looks like nothing's working for him. He doesn't look comfortable coaching this team. You've lost your starting quarterback. You lost a solid backup in Tyrod Taylor. If you had told me that you have Tyrod Taylor this year, he would play 10 games at quarterback for you, I would say, okay, you have to live with it. But now he's hurt. You're playing, what's his name, Tommy DeVito?
Danny DeVito?
Tommy Look, watching what Dallas did to those guys was criminal. It was criminal. The Giants literally did not look good enough to beat DeMatha High School. They looked terrible. And Daboll is responsible for all of this, okay? The front office is responsible for all this. I don't think anyone's getting fired. I'm not saying that. But next year, the Maras are going to need to see some food on their plate, okay? A lot of things have to change in New York. And look, New York could be looking for a quarterback, okay? They could be looking for a quarterback.
Both teams could be.
Both teams could be. You're right.
Well, can we talk about the only quarterback who played in New York right now?
Who?
There's only one quarterback who plays his home games in New York. Josh Allen.
Oh dear.
Those other guys play in New Jersey.
They play in New Jersey. Let's talk about Josh Allen. Here on the TD Report with Tony Kennedy, I'm David Combs. Please hit the like and subscribe button for us. Tony, What happened on Monday night? What was that?
First of all, for them to fire the offensive coordinator, and this guy's out here throwing interceptions. Somebody help me out with this.
Look, this isn't Ken Dorsey's fault. This is not his fault. What's happened is the head coach McDermott has meddled in all levels of everything, and now it's all jumbled up. It's all messed up as far as the offense. And don't get me wrong, Tony, that offense was performing. It's just at the very worst times of games, they lose focus and they make mistakes. That's exactly what happened last night.
Well, I think Josh Allen should get the same treatment that Dak got of throwing interceptions, because Josh Allen throws way more than Dak would ever throw. He turns it over more than any quarterback they've shown in the last 60 years. This dude, man, I don't know, dude. They got a serious problem. Remember, they blamed the defense on Leslie Frazier when they was number one. All of a sudden, now he's not there. Now they blame the offense on your boy Dorsey. Now he's not there. So gone. Somebody tell me what's the constant in there? It's him, the head coach. Either you're gonna lay the blame on your superstar and then make him come out and say, "Hey guys, that superstar, this is on me."
Look at it
and roll from there.
Look at it this way. The Bills are 7th in the league in passing yards, 8th in scoring. They're 5th in points against. So they score a lot of points and they don't give up a ton of points. But yet and still, they're only 5-5. There's a tipping point in there somewhere in the statistics of why they lose so many games and they're able to win them. We know they can win games. It's why they're losing those 5 games in there. Really, I thought that Buffalo at this point, 10 games in, I thought they'd be about 7, and they should be a 7-3 team. But Bill
Belichick said, "You lose more games than you win."
And there it is. Why are they losing the games that they lose? They're not even a bad rushing team. Their top half is a rushing team, 13th in rushing. So if you're able to do that, throwing the football, running the football, you can move it, you can score it, and you don't give up a ton of points. They give up 18 points against? That ain't bad, Tony. You should be able to win a lot of games giving up 18 a night.
Yeah, right? I think this window for Buffalo has closed. I think it's done, and I think, man, they're in some serious trouble.
I picked them to win the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Who'd you pick to go Super Bowl this year?
I can't even remember who I picked. I wrote it down. Cody's going to have to pull that up for me.
San Francisco and San Francisco and Kansas City again, or something like that.
I think I might have picked San Francisco to go from the NFC this year, and I might have gone with the Chiefs.
My halfway pick.
Wait a minute. What was your first pick? What was your first? You picked Minnesota.
No, I didn't. I never picked Kirk Cousins.
Not me. Minnesota, Tony.
No, never. I never picked Minnesota. I told you the Lions were my
you
7
Lions. You had the Lions. You're right.
My 7 playoff teams were Lions, Giants, Seahawks, Eagles, Cowboys, Saints.
That's the playoffs, yeah.
That's my playoff team. So it had to be one of those 7 teams.
Okay,
so
I agree with that.
I didn't pick Dallas. So I think that I picked the Lions. Yeah, I did. I picked the Lions.
I think you did.
And that's my team. My team is the Lions. And I'm going to stay with the Lions. I think they're the best team in the NFC.
What are the chances we see a rematch with them with Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl? What are the chances?
Don't think there's any chance. I don't think. Listen.
You think someone's going to nip Kansas City this year again?
I know they're going to nip Kansas City. They're going to nip Kansas City.
Cincinnati couldn't do it last year.
Cincinnati had it done last year. They called that BS play on the sideline that gave them the damn game. That's one team they don't want to see. They don't want to see the Bengals.
They ain't afraid of the Bengals. They ain't scared.
Yeah, they are. But the
They're
Bengals
not
came in
scared.
there and beat them
I'll say
the
this,
year
Tony.
before and had
They're
them
not
beat last
scared.
year.
They're not scared, but they're
But
mildly concerned.
they mildly concerned. They don't
Mildly
want to see
concerned.
them.
Let's talk about that on the TD report. They're not scared of them. They're mildly concerned.
They better be concerned. It was funny us going to the game and watching those guys and watching the coverages and just looking at certain things that they were doing, trying to confuse the rookie. They just weren't getting any pressure on CJ Stroud. I think by Hubbard not being in there, yeah, they just doubled what Jody said he's the best. They just doubled them because they weren't worried about the edges. And see, that happens. That can happen. When you're not worried about the edge, you can use that guard to double down on my man. And you don't have to worry about trying to have him try to kick out. Yes. You can just double.
Out of all the goof ups the Texans made during the Deshaun Watson thing, they did one thing right. They hung on to Laramie Tunsil. Hung on to that. He is stalwart on the offensive line. He's very, very important. Okay. Doesn't get a lot of pub, doesn't get a lot of a lot of press, but he does his job. He keeps CJ Stroud upright.
And you all listen, so your offensive lineman, your edge rusher, your quarterback. Then you work around from there.
You think that's the new way to build the NFL?
It has to be because you have to have a tackle to stop the edge, to keep your quarterback.
Thanks, Paul.
To keep your quarterback upright so he can get the ball down the field.
Paul Adams says Miami and 49ers in the Super Bowl is who he sees.
That's who we see, and that's not a bad pick, but that's not a bad pick because Miami's decent, and mostly everybody agreed that the 49ers probably are the best put together team there. Jody says Philly. I say the Lions. A lot of people gonna say the 49ers. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we all guessing based upon what we think that we know that's right on there.
Miami's had a pretty good year. I mean, they're okay. They're a lot better. They're better than I thought they'd be, and offensively, they're dangerous. I'll say that. What you don't want to see is you don't want to see Miami in a warm weather situation where they can run, where they can get that ball up and down the field. What you want to do is you want to see Miami. If you're the Kansas City Chiefs, they're coming to our place. You want them in a cold weather. Let's be honest. You want them in a cold weather town where they can't sit there and throw the football all night. Okay.
Yes.
But you want them outdoors. You want them outdoors.
And see, what people don't realize is everybody used to think that it's harder to go from a warm weather team to cold weather. Every player has to deal with the cold weather. Okay. What's harder to me is taking a cold weather team down to the heat, because what happens in the heat, you start getting cramps and your performance can go down, really down, because now you cramping, you can't go as hard as you want because you think you might cramp. The weather does play. Late in the season, it gets cold everywhere, okay? So people's body gets really acclimated to that. But your body now has moved from the summertime. So when it's 85 degrees in Miami in January, it's 34 degrees up here in the Northeast. Coming from here to go down there to play a game, man, that's harder than just Miami Dolphins coming up here and it's just cold, because those are players running around. They're going to get warm after a quarter. They warm. They good.
Well, Tony, this is where your strength and conditioning people, your training staff, that's where those guys and gals make their money, is getting those players ready to play in the climate.
David, this is where your dietitians make their money.
Them too. Yeah.
Because when you have to train and get your body ready to not cramp, what do we need to do? We need to be a week out. We need to be apples. We need to be oranges. We need to be bananas. We need to be hydrated. We need to be a week out. And those are things that you just take for granted that are really, really big. Because you remember last year when Buffalo came to Miami and played that game, and Josh Allen and the whole team was on the sideline with IVs and they were cramping. Yeah, man, you don't You don't want to go to the bottom in Miami and play them down there in the
You
playoffs.
know,
You just don't.
well, Tony, I got country people in my family. You know what we do? Be drinking that pickle juice out there, man. You need to get a little salt to
What are you,
mix in with
Marshawn?
you.
What are
You
you,
got to get
Marshawn
it,
Lynch?
huh?
I said, what are you, Marshawn Lynch? Pickle
Hey,
juice.
no, that's Deuce. That's Deuce Staley, man. That's where they,
Yeah,
them South Carolina, man. That's just kind of how they do it down there, man. Listen,
yeah.
you're absolutely right. Diet, strength and conditioning, training, your field staff, getting people with the right shoes, the right cold gear or the right heat gear. I mean, it's this whole pro football thing, high level college football, even high level high school football. There's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes. Things like that you and I were doing when we were doing these high school games, where I didn't know. You were like, Dave, you got to make sure they have ice at this venue. I didn't know that, but you did because you played football. You understood that. If you can't fill up your ice buckets to have those on the sideline, guy sprains his ankle, gets hit on the elbow, whatever, you got to put ice on it, right?
Yeah,
It's if
we
you don't
had
have
we
them,
had our man Chet and his
yeah,
crew making sure everything was right. I mean,
that's right.
it's all a Dave. So then we on the NFL. Give me your 14 playoff teams, starting with the AFC.
Whew, AFC. Let me start on the east side of the world. Let me get Baltimore will be in the playoffs. Cincinnati will be in the playoffs. I'm gonna put Kansas City in the playoffs. I don't think the Chargers are going to make the playoffs this year. I'm just going to say that. Let me get the Browns. They're in. They're going to go to the playoffs.
That's three from that division. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's three from that division. Oh yeah, I got to take somebody from that division, don't I? Dolphins. Dolphins come out of the East. How many out? Is my four? I got
That was
five.
5 teams. You got another division. Um, the the
Oh yeah,
Texans
yeah, yeah. Hold
division.
on. I got the last two. The Texans are going to the playoffs this year, and give me the Jags.
So you left out Pittsburgh, San
Pittsburgh won't make it.
Diego,
San Diego's not going to make it.
Buffalo,
Buffalo's not going to make it.
Jets.
Jets not going to make it. Here's what I say this about this the team that you're really concerned about that you were asking about, Pittsburgh. Ed Tomlin, your brother, Mike Tomlin, right now is the best coach in all of pro football. He's the best coach, best pure coach. They have nothing other than T.J. Watt. They have nothing. They've been outgained in every game this year. 9 straight games they've been outgained and have won 6. Tony, you realize how good a freaking coach you have to be to win 6 games, and you've been outgained every game.
Okay. But
But they're not making it. They're gonna fall apart.
let me tell you something, Dave. So the Mike Tomlin, I've always said he's a great coach. When you never have a losing season in 15, 16 years, in this level NFL, see that was different when you got Tom Landry and them because they could keep the same teams.
There was
When
no
you
free
have
agency. There was no
Yeah,
free
when you
agents.
have so many moving parts and you can still have that success, then like you said, you gotta give him his flowers. What the problem is, Pittsburgh, is these eyes see that you can't keep winning games like that.
Nope.
Eventually, it will catch up. And when it
What did
catch
I
up,
say, Tony? I said they're doing it with smoke and mirrors. He is
and
literally what this guy has done football wise. You take him as a coach, a pure football coach.
mhm,
Let me have him here in Washington, please. Put him in Washington. He will make these fans here so happy. I'm telling you,
eh,
he is
eh,
a great football coach, dude.
he's a great
But he ain't
football.
going nowhere. He ain't
He
going nowhere.
don't he don't make the playoffs. He may be gone.
Honestly, if they don't make the playoffs and the Steelers do make the move and push him out, they fire him. If I'm Josh Harris of the Washington Commanders. I put Redskin 1 down. I put it down right there in Pittsburgh, and I pick his ass up right as he walks out of their facility. Swear to God.
Yeah,
Seriously.
it's a
You
damn
have to make.
shame.
Now, I will say this. Belichick is not the move I would make if I was Washington. I wouldn't make that move because he's on the way out. He's gone, as far as I'm
But you
concerned.
know what I would do with Belichick?
What?
I would make
Don't
him.
say GM.
I would make him my GM.
Oh my God, you can't let him pick players.
Yeah, I can.
No, don't do that.
Why
Don't
not?
do that. Don't do that.
Why not?
His drafts have been terrible.
Okay, so basically, what everybody's telling me is that Tom Brady is the sole reason why they won 6 Super Bowls.
He's one of the biggest reasons.
He can be. So all those people that he drafted on defense and all those people put around him, that's Belichick.
I'll tell you what, I would let him draft defense and that's it. But I wouldn't let him touch offense. There's no way. Gotta go.
That's fair. That's fair.
No, I'm serious. Now, if Belichick would do that and he would say, if I told him we're going to hire, well, this is the thing. It doesn't work that way, Tony. You know better than that. You can't have 2 GMs. You can't have one GM that only hires one side of the football. The other GM hires the other side. It just won't work. You cannot
But
give him. You cannot
do
give him
have a player personnel.
You cannot give him
Y'all
control
right.
of player personnel. Can't do it.
No, but you do have a player. My thing is with people, and this is what I always want to tell. Yes, Belichick's record is terrible without Brady. His record is whatever without Brady.
Whew.
But I like to let people know that there was and is someone who had to build that team and had to build. Who the hell y'all think helped build the Ravens before they became the Ravens? When they were in Cleveland, on his board and all that stuff that they were building and building that team. See, Belichick gets disrespected because of what Brady did, but he's one of the best football minds I ever known. I can call my man Roger Brown up and get him on the phone because when I was raving over Bill Parcells, and 1990, oh man, Parcells is man. He said, no, dude, our defensive coordinator is the man. And so when I met him back in 1990, when he introduced me to him, that's the only reason why I even know who he was. I didn't know that he was the defensive coordinator in '86 when they won the Super Bowl. And then in '90, I found out who he was. So that's why the last 33 years, I've been really kind of knowing who he is. The guy knows football.
X's and O's, there's nobody better. I'll say that. As a tactical coach, X's and O's. But he can't, here's the thing, he can't pick the Jimmies and Joes, Tony. That's the difference. You see what I'm saying?
He can pick the Jimmies and Joes to go in his system on defense. On defense, and he always seems to find the right connections on his damn team.
You know, when he had Teddy Bruschi, Willie McGinnis, those guys.
Samuels,
the
defensive line.
Samuel Sr., they had some players, dude.
Yeah.
They had some ballers. And
Belichick picked them.
Belichick picked them. But I will say this also. The way that the Patriots way, they would make sure the end of your contract, your last year in your contract, you ain't getting that last bit of money, dog. You ain't getting that money, dog. They gonna cut your ass. They want to get rid of you. Adalius Thomas talked about it. He's like, "Hey man, I thought I was gonna get that last year, dog. Man, they did me wrong on that." You thought she was. It was a bunch of them. It was a bunch of the Patriots. Old Patriots said that you really thought you was gonna get that money. It's like I did, man. You know the old man ain't gonna let you get that money. He says I was out of there so fast. He said Belichick sat there and said, "Well, come down to the coach's room and bring your playbook. Yeah, let's come on down there." He got that monotone voice. Julian Edelman on that podcast has some great Belichick stories about what you're supposed to do, what all the options you had and the freedom that you had in the offense. And he said, "There's only one problem." And they said, "What's the problem?" He's like, "You damn well better make the right cut, and Brady better throw you the football in the right spot." He said, "Because if Brady throws when you ain't there, it's your fault. Wherever Brady threw it, that was where the ball was supposed to go. You just had to be on Brady's page." He's like, "You cut in, you cut in, and Brady throws it out."
But
Sorry about that.
he
He
had
says,
6 reasons.
he said, "You do that, forget it, buddy." He's like, "You in trouble."
Hey man, but hey, look, it takes all them to win.
Yes, it
Now,
does. I don't think
if
Belichick
we,
gets this job. He doesn't get the DC job. He won't get it here. He's
I
not coming here.
I'm not pushing for him to get the DC job. I mean,
He
I
ain't
think
coming here.
his
Nah,
best
he ain't
days
coming here.
are behind him. If they got lucky to get somebody like Mike Tomlin, because he's disrespected so hard in Pittsburgh, it's
It's
unfair.
time to make a move. It's time to make a move in Pittsburgh. I don't think he's going to survive. I think the situation with his offensive coordinator is a problem.
Hmm.
I don't know if the quarterback, I don't know if Kenny Pickett is up to the challenge at the level that he's at. When I look at Kenny Pickett and I look at what Washington has with Sam Howell,
Well,
I think
here's why he's
Sam
not going to
Howell looks good
survive.
to me, dog.
Here's why he's not going to survive. He has the worst quarterback in the best division.
Good point. That's a good point. You're right. He does. I'd really love to get. I'd really love to get somebody from the Steelers on here, Steelers insider, to talk with us about the scuttlebutt behind quarterback, the problem with the offensive coordinator situation, and what's Tomlin's responsibility in all this. I don't know if Tomlin's able to make a move at OC. He might not be able to fire the offensive coordinator. He might not be able to,
Well,
or take. Honestly, I want to see them take play calling responsibilities away. There's just something not right with that offense, and I don't even know if it's all Kenny Pickett. They need something to kind of change. They need to switch some things around. They need to
mhm,
make. You see what I mean? It's again my definition of insanity. They keep doing the same thing over and over with this kid, and they keep getting
mhm.
the same results. Here's the problem: they're 6-3. So what does Bill Belichick say? The best deodorant is winning, because don't nobody knows something stink. All right. I'm looking at their offense and I'm saying to myself, how in the hell do they keep doing this? How do they keep winning? Because honestly, out of 8 weeks this year, I think I picked against Pittsburgh 6 times. And they still keep winning. I think I'm the reason they're winning because I keep picking against them and they keep winning. I
Well, I
can't
tell
make
you
any
what,
money off of them.
they're not winning this week.
Who do they have this week?
They at the Browns.
That's a loss, dog.
Yeah,
That's a loss.
that's a
It
clear
better be a
loss.
loss.
Yeah, they're not beating the Browns. If you get outgained by the Browns, and then the Browns defense is just they're not beating
It's
them.
too good.
Not in
But the
Cleveland.
Browns defense is just too good.
Yeah, they're
It's
not beating
just
them.
it is what it is.
So
And we have to say this about the Browns from last week. And I know we're going over a little bit. I have a couple of things at the end of the show I want to talk about, but I want to get this thing on the Browns. I give the Browns credit for two things. The Ravens got a defensive touchdown last week. Kyle Hamilton got a pick six, right? It's very rare that you beat the Ravens and they get a defensive touchdown on you.
because you
That's
got to because the Browns also got a pick six.
and the Browns also get a pick six. And
So they
the
evened it
Browns
out.
came back. The Browns came back from a 14-point deficit, which their team is not. They're not built. They're not built to do that. That's not how they want to play football, right? I give them credit for doing that. Hey, listen, Baltimore Ravens fans, don't be at me talking about I'm unfair to the Ravens. I just personally haven't said anything positive about the Ravens because I don't want to jinx them. They're playing great. 7-3. There shouldn't be any complaints right now because nobody looked at the Ravens and said after 10 games they'll have 6 or 7 wins. Nobody thought that.
They blew 3 games.
And they've blown 3 games, which is bad. That's bad mojo. So listen, on the TD report, we give away a lot of free game on here. I want to throw something at you, Tony. Seton High School over here in Bladensburg. Girls tennis. They won the girls tennis this year, Tony. How cool is that? Don't even have tennis courts at Seton. They're one of the only schools in the WCAC that does not have any tennis courts. They were able to win tennis this year. It's their first time winning tennis ever for the school. Isn't that great?
That is great, but it's an elephant in the room, Dave.
What's that?
We're not talking about St. John's losing to DeMatha now.
Let's talk about that. St. John's has lost. Oh, I'm mad at. Hey, listen, I'm mad about it. Listen, we love Coach McGregor here on our show. Coach McGregor, great guy. And by the way, Coach Ricka did hit me up. I'm just like, yeah, we lost to him again. They played a game early this year, the regular season matchup. St. John's lost in overtime, and it was a good game. But DeMatha was just too good. What did they win? 21-3 in the WCAC semifinals. And they will play Andy Stefanelli's Good Counsel Falcons for the WCAC championship in football, which should be a great game. But they play.
What time is the game on Sunday?
Oh my God!
It's this Sunday from Navy Stadium.
Yeah, they're gonna do Navy Stadium this year.
So it's probably a 1 o'clock game.
It's a 1 o'clock.
Yeah, it's probably so. If it's Sunday. Yeah, it's Sunday.
Marine Memorial Stadium is a great venue for high school football. And I think it's a great place for the Catholic League to continue to play their games there. So it might not be a 1 o'clocker, Tony, because they've got the division game, the other division game.
They probably, it may be a 4 o'clock.
That might be the 1 o'clock, so it might be a 4 o'clock game.
4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock game. We'll check it on Thursday and get it back to you.
We'll get the times for everybody, and we will post it here, and we'll get Cody to put it down across the bottom. I did want to also give a shout out. Friend of the show, my friend, your friend, Kevin Gibbs from St. John's. His son signed with the University of Maryland to play baseball. He just signed today. He's going to be a Dirty Terp. So congratulations to young Colin Gibbs. Hey, Colin, we're going to get your dad on the show sometime so you can talk and say good things about you. I'll say something nice about Colin Gibbs. Not only is he a heck of a baseball player, okay? Not only is he a great middle brother because he's got a younger sister. He's got an older brother that's up down at VCU playing baseball. He is a very polite kid. Every time I see him, hey, Mr. Combs, how are you doing? Nice to see you again. How's your son doing? Great.
That's great, man. I'm glad he went to the Terps.
Good home training, the Gibbs family. And by the way, his granddad coached at St. John's. His uncle is now the head coach at St. John's. His dad went to St. John's and played baseball. Probably the best baseball player ODU ever had. His uncle is probably one of the best baseball players George Mason ever had. And his older brother's at VCU. Pretty good, huh?
Yeah, you made him sound like he was Lieutenant Dan in that movie.
Lieutenant Dan.
You had said everybody went to the same place.
Well, I don't think Ed went to St. John's, but he was the coach. He became the coach right around the time I think a senior in high school or something. But he's a heck of a youth coach and obviously a great high school coach. So again, shout out to the Gibbs family. Congratulations, you guys. For us, we're gonna jump off here. Tony, I owe you one for the St. John's thing. I'll get the times on those games for you, and we'll be back on Thursday.
Back on Thursday night. I am going to the game. I may come live to you guys from Raven Stadium.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's great.
With the Bengals. All right.
Should be good.
All right.
Thanks for joining us on the TD Report, everybody. Thanks, Tony. And thanks to Jody.
Right.
Welcome back, buddy.
Big Jody. Welcome back, Jody. Later.
Appreciate y'all.